Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
I'm Brittany Pacheco.
I tried to think of a soup nickname, but I couldn't. I'm Tristan Jones.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to discuss season 4, episode 4 of The Boys, the Amazon Prime series, episode titled Wisdom of the Ages. Now, Brittany, last week we tackled the first 3 episodes of the season, which again, my only complaint with this show is like, why drop 3? This show is so good. Just give us one at a time. So we've already talked about what we thought about the first 3 episodes. Tristan, you're joining us this week. I want to get your thoughts on the first 3 before we talk about episode 4. What'd you think of the first 3 so far?
I've very much enjoyed this season. What I love most about The Boys is like you don't have to binge the first 3 seasons to like get caught up. Like it's such a on the surface. Like there's so many like complex points to it, but it's such an on the surface show that you can kind of dive right into it. I love what I'm seeing with the actual Boys crew and just seeing like the different relationship dynamics there. My my one quibble, I guess, is one of my biggest critiques is like this whole Huey Starlight thing. Like they have no chemistry together. Well, we'll talk about that, but everything else, like I'm very much enjoying this season. I feel like the stakes are rising.
Yeah.
Like with every episode, like even episode 4, like this early in the season, I'm just like, man, like I feel so tense. Like what's gonna happen? You feel like kind of like the urgency in the different characters. But yes, loving it so far.
Yeah. Brittany, so let's start talking about episode 4. What are your thoughts on that episode as a whole?
Can someone give Antony Starr an Emmy already? Like, if that hasn't already happened, it needs to happen solely because of this episode. I mean, I've talked about his range with acting, especially with the ending of episode 3, right? Him, Homelander, having a conversation with his reflections, and you're seeing the different facets of Homelander. You have the kind of thoughtful, sincere one, you have the super angry one, and then you have like the sort of logical one at the very top, and the broken Homelander John, if you will, that is facing this mirror, and seeing just how much Antony can change his emotion. I mean, that he's truly a phenomenal actor. And based on that, and knowing that Homelander has to, quote, go home to the bad broom, which we really will talk about throughout this episode. I'm not shocked by the behavior of Homelander. What I am shocked is with Antony's ability to keep shocking you with his performance level, and it just keeps rising and keeps going. I mean, these episodes, of course, keep rising and keep you going, but I mean, there is no one else that could play Homelander as well as Antony Starr, and I absolutely love this episode solely because of him. We're seeing a completely different side of Homelander that we have yet to see before.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
Antony Starr.
Go for it.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna say,
No.
like he's at this point, I think he's too good at his job. Like he talks about, people coming up to him on the street and giving him a grief about Homelander. Like that's what happens when you're too good at your job. To where when people see, like I saw him in The Covenant a few weeks ago. Me and my wife watched The Covenant, and it took me probably 3 or 4 scenes. Like, oh, that's Antony. Oh, that's Homelander. Like he just blends into these roles so beautifully. And episode 4 is the Homelander episode, for better or for worse, but phenomenal performance. I'm just, backing up what Brittany said there.
Yeah, no, I agree with both of y'all. I mean, Antony Starr is a star, and in this role, I think this role could have been great for a lot of people. I mean, I think on the paper, on the page, like it's just an awesome character, but he's taken it so much further than they probably ever expected this character to be taken. Like it's like he's so good, and like you're right, this is definitely episode 4 is a Homelander episode, and it just he's the signature character of the show, and I mean without this character, the show wouldn't work as well as it does, and this was a great highlight for him and also the character. But as far as just the show overall, like I'm sorry, I know I'm a broken record with this, but like it's so great to just have one episode this week to talk about because this show they packed so much into an hour, or whatever the runtime is. There's so many storylines. Almost every single character is provided some kind of plot, or there's A B C D E F G kind of plot line. So I just really wish Amazon would just give us you know one episode a week from now on. Like, just believe in your content. I mean, like the other show that we're talking about right now that's also a massive show is House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon would never drop 2, 3 episodes at the beginning of the season. They're going to give us one a week because they know the value of their show. And I wish Amazon did the same thing with The Boys, because The Boys is a phenomenal show, and we know that season 5 will be the final season. So I hope they make that change for season 5. They probably won't, but just give us one at a time, because like last week we were talking about 3 episodes at once, and it's overwhelming. There's so much in one episode, and then times 3 it's just kind of all over the place. But happy to be talking about one, and this is one of the better ones, I think, of the 3+ year run of the show. Um, Brittany, as you mentioned, we start off with let's just focus on Homelander to begin with. Let's focus on kind of his storyline, then we'll kind of move on to other characters. But as you mentioned, in the very end of episode 3, he's looking into the mirror, and he's the message he's getting back is he has to go home. And it's like, okay, what does that mean? So we find out going home means going back to the lab where he was raised, and he goes back there and just you know basically slaughters these people that basically tortured him over his while he's growing up from age, I mean, I guess from like birth to like age 16 or so. um Tristan, what about Homelander's storyline in this episode really stuck out to you? Or what was there a specific scene that you're like, wow, that was like just a phenomenal?
Um, I don't know if you can divorce like the mental torture that he put everyone through. I don't know if you can divorce each one. Like having a guy like humiliate himself, and well, let's just say, I don't know what's worse, getting burned alive or, getting an eye laser shot through your midsection. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what's worse, but like ultimately it's all to achieve the same aim, which is to return like the torture that he felt like he received as a child. And he's not letting anybody off the hook. It's
No.
Barbara tries to explain to him, this is our job. People are afraid of you. Like they do these things out of fear, out of fear of losing their job, out of fear of being attacked, out of fear or whatever. Like, and he's so relentless in his just psychosis, just psychotic behavior that, all he sees is what he felt, which is interesting because Homelander doesn't really come off as like empathetic, right? Or just understanding other people's pain, but like in this moment, he's demanding that everybody else atone for the pain that he received. Which I get, like it's childhood trauma. Like the thing that stood out the most, to answer your question, the thing that stood out the most to me is that at every point, from the lessons that he's trying to teach Ryan to like the way he kind of boasts this to everyone else, to the other soups, like Homelander is trying to divorce himself from his humanity. But in this moment, like he's at his most human, right? It's the revenge factor. It's the demanding accountability for pain. Trying to make people feel what he felt as a child. Like he's so human that he hates himself for it. He's been trying for the last since the end of season 1. He's been trying to like exercise that humanity out of him, but it only comes back more in like tenfold. So like all this torture or either slaughtering everybody, in the facility was Homelander at his most human. And that's the most ironic part of it. Again, you can only pull that off with like brilliant acting though.
Yeah.
And Antony Starr's like, that's the MVP performance. Like, I think there's so many like really, 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 really good actors and actresses on this show. And like, you can see the stark difference in talent, just pure talent between Antony Starr and everyone else. And it showed at the highest level in this episode.
Yeah, no question. Brittany, is there something you want to highlight from Homelander's storyline in this episode?
Finding out about how he entered into this world. My God, being that powerful and that unknowing to him, unbeknownst to him, that's the word I'm looking for, how violent he was. You know, how he lasered himself through his mother's womb. And I mean, that's all because Barbara said that she was there the day that he was born, and how he just massacred that room as an infant. So like as an infant, understandably so, you can't control your powers. You have no idea that you have these powers. But that was the real takeaway from me, was learning about how he was born, and then how the scientists or whomever for Vought were kind of like, okay, we've really got to contain this kid because he is so damn powerful. And I understand the psychological trauma that Homelander slash John experienced because of that interpretation of, I watched you from this window through this door while you're trying to burn my skin to see how far I could go. Like it hurt. It didn't like impact his skin, but like it still hurt him.
Yeah.
And you know, getting his revenge, but still playing with his food about it first was just, you know, it's very obviously on brand for Homelander, right? He did that earlier with showing just how much no one wants to challenge him in the 7, right? When he told the Deep to go blow A-Train, right? Because no one wants to challenge him. And now that he's got the upper hand and he knows that these people fear the hell out of him, it's like, you know, oh, I'm gonna, you know, I'm not gonna scare my prey because it's gonna spoil them. But it's truly wild how Homelander goes about his business. And I don't really have any hope that he would, you know, turn to be a good guy or anything like that. He's just too far gone to be anything but who he is. But in order to kill his humanity, in order to kill John, you know, his given name, he's got to do so many bad things, I feel, in order for him to feel that superiority, that godlike being that he thinks he is, right? Because he tells Ryan that, you know, humans are for our entertainment or whatever. And it's truly sickening. It really truly is sickening. But to see just how far he'll go, especially at the very end of all this, he massacres everyone in the bad room, but leaves Barbara in there to, you know, basically just die, right? It's horrible. It's truly horrible.
Yeah, and then it ends with, you know, Homelander covered in blood, which is such an iconic kind of already. I mean, the episode's like 5 days old or whatever, and it's like you see that image everywhere online, with the smile on his face. And we've seen him bloody before. I think the season finale of season 2, I believe, when he's in the woods with Butcher and Becca and Ryan. So, but you know, the smile on his face, you know, which leads us to believe that he figured out that, you know, by killing everyone, he's actually killing his humanity. I don't know that I totally believe that, but it seems like he believes that. That's all that matters to him. But I mean, the way he tortures these lab workers, and you know, these are people he has a lot of history with. Like, you know, you have Frank, the guy, the waste paper basket guy, who, by the way, the guy line drive shot. I mean, like maybe a little bit more arc on it, but he was, you know, he would have beaten Homelander apparently. So I just want to critique that because the guy was like, just like, I don't know, maybe Tristan, what are your thoughts on that?
As a trash can paper ball expert, like that was the most unbelievable part of that episode. Like there was no follow through. Like you just kind of slinging that shit like you know, you throw on the first base. Like I wasn't neither one, Homelander or Frank. Neither one of them were making that shit in real life.
No,
that's just my opinion.
Yeah, but Frank had like just a quick line drive release, and I'm just like, how is this guy beating you? Like, you have superpowers.
In real life, I actually know someone who shoots a basketball kind of similar, and he makes his shot every single time. I don't understand the physics behind it, but it's a thing.
Well, you know, if you grow up like playing outside, like in a windy area like Chicago or something, you know, there are people that shoot line drive shots because that's kind of the only way you can make a shot when you're in those weather conditions, but like, you're inside, like put a little arc on it, like I'm surprised no one said like Kobe
You
when they shot. I
you
thought
mean
the
like
part
what I did? You mean like what I did a couple weeks ago with the
yeah,
foil ball? Yeah, that was pretty
actually, which
impressive.
yeah, that was like I don't know, a 25-foot shot and you hit the rim. So pretty impressive. But he
Not
makes
impressive
for
enough for Homelander though. I probably wouldn't
no,
make it.
no, I think he would have had to get in the oven with Frank.
Jesus.
Um, so brutal. That's such a brutal way to die. And as far as like Tristan's question of which way is worse, the way that Frank died or the way that Marty died, and Marty, just so we get the details out there, he's forced to jerk off in front of everybody because Homelander, when Homelander was a kid, Marty saw him doing that and he gave him the nickname Squirt. And Marty's having a tough time as I think most people probably would. But in this case, like, where is the Hawk 2 girl when you need her? Like, she could have helped out right there.
Hawk Tui?
Yeah. I
Jeez.
mean, this is her time, like this episode came out at the perfect time
Oh.
for her. But
That's
yeah,
all
Marty
that Twitter is about right now is
I
that Hawk
know
Tui girl. It's nuts.
it is insane. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, she's probably I don't know her age, but she'll probably be somebody's running mate in November. I mean, let's let's be real.
It's not gonna be this guy though. This guy did not make it. I mean, he
Did not.
definitely could not perform.
And I don't.
And under the circumstances, I don't blame him.
And I think even if he had been able to perform, I think the same result would have happened.
Oh, 100%.
Homelander was gonna brutally kill him no matter what. Go ahead.
Not to get off topic, and I'm just being nitpicky. This is like a bit of a goof because Homelander has the laser heat vision, whatever.
Yeah.
The guy wouldn't have bled out as much as he did. It would have cauterized. So guy would have been in a lot of pain, but I don't think he would have bled out as much as he did.
I don't know. I mean, he
just
lasered a hole
observation.
through him.
No,
So-
but what I'm saying is because of the heat and all that, heat
Yeah.
will, cauterize like the vessels and such. Doesn't make things any better.
Yeah.
But it's that was a lot of blood. A lot of blood. I mean, obviously, we're season 4 into The Boys. We know that there's always going to be a massive amount of blood, just period. But yeah, that was my only kind of like quip with that particular scene. I was just like, that wouldn't have actually really been like that. But okay.
Yeah.
Still
and then
horrible situation. I feel for y'all.
the final person is Barbara, who, as you mentioned, he does not kill her, but he leaves her in the quote unquote bad room where she's surrounded by 20 dead bodies or whatever. Tristan, as far as Barbara, do you think he left her? I mean, obviously left her alive to kind of torture her in a different way, but do you think she was kind of like a motherly figure? That's why he didn't rip her apart or laser her? Or?
Yeah, I mean, he has this thing with motherly figures, Madeline Albright, Stormfront, and now Barbara, and it's a way. He has a way of torturing each one of them, like making sure that they give them everything that he wants, and then in return, he kind of tortures them to the end. Madeline, what did I say? Yeah, Stillwell. What did I say? Albright. Oh, that's the real Stillwell. Madeline Stillwell. My bad, Stillwell. But yeah, all of his motherly. He has weird relationships with all the motherly figures in his life. Actually, just watched a little, YouTube theory video on like who his actual mother might be, and that makes it even more weird. But we'll talk about that at a later date. But yeah, I think he left her in there to prove her wrong. She told him like, "Hey, there's this innate human part of you that seeks approval from people." And I think in Homelander's mind, he said by leaving her there, by showing her the destruction that he did and kind of walking away from that, like, hey, I can walk away from my humanity. Justin, like you said, I don't believe that either. But he believes that, and he has the power to like try to prove that and leave, that destructive weight. There's a lot of destruction as well. Yeah, ultimately, I think this is about his, again, just trying his best to like reject that humanity or try to divorce himself from the humanity, try to like pull it away from his body, and he really can't, because the more, it's like Game of Thrones, the more you try to like make a prophecy be true, the more you fall deeper into it. So like we're seeing all the human parts of him. We're seeing the insecurities, we're seeing, you know, the lack of doubt, lack of self-confidence, the need for love, the need for revenge, right? Like the need to hold people accountable for the pain that they've inflicted on you. Like those things that you never, like, technically he's a god. You know, he has all the powers and all, you know, of a god, but he can't shake, you know, the pain that he had to go through in order to become that. So like, do you really love who you are? If you, I understand being mad at, you know, being tortured as a child, but like, if you appreciate who you are now and you're trying to divorce yourself from that humanity, and some part of you has to let that go. Like that would actually be the most human part, is to like be apathetic towards those people. But he can't help it. He's still a child. He's still a 16-year-old that crossed out John and wrote The Homelander. You know, he's that same person. He's just, you know, Arrested Development, just with a shitload of, you know, he's just the most powerful being on the planet.
Yeah, well, what's not helping his case is having a shit ton of breast milk hidden in his apartment. Like, my goodness.
And Compound V.
And Compound V. And Compound V. That's a different topic for a different character. But like, sticking with Homelander, though, I mean, Barbara called him out. I mean, she called him out on all his shit and said, you know, the irony behind all of what you're doing is very human. Like the need for love, the need to be needed or wanted or that kind of thing. I love that about her. Wish we had a little bit more of Miss Barbara, RIP, because we know no one's going to come looking for you. Homelander is going to make sure of that. So I don't know. I like that he was getting called out on his shit.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll see Barbara again. That facility is probably going to be shut down for a while, I would think. Is there anything else about Homelander y'all want to touch on before we move on?
Yeah, where was Ryan during all of this? Got no Ryan in this episode. How do you go home and explain that to your son, Homelander? Really?
Yeah, no, fair question. Fair question. So moving on from the ultimate superhero to a character that I wonder, is he a soup now? Let's talk about Butcher. Tristan, I'm gonna throw it to you. Do you think that Butcher is a soup now, given what happens in this episode where he blacks out? And we've seen him black out a couple times this season. He blacks out at the beginning of the episode when he's in the shower. He falls, hits his face. He always has these visions where he's talking to Becca, who of course died at the end of season 2. There's another scene where he blacks out and kills Ezekiel, another you know, soup that's with Firecracker. So my question is, and also this season we've seen several times where he's got some kind of like worm or something in his head or in his back or shoulder or whatever. I mean, he's got to be a soup, right?
I absolutely think he's a soup, or at least he has some soup in him. That kind of goes in and out, but like that makes you a soup. I think it's interesting that they didn't show us what his actual power was, like how he killed Ezekiel, how he's killing. So like, yeah, he's absolutely a soup. But the ironic thing is, I think that's also what's keeping him alive, but also killing him at the same time. Very Butcher-esque irony. Yeah, I'm interested to know more about whatever condition he has, how much like the Compound V that he took in the previous season, like how is that affecting him? You know, what can he do? How far can he go? Is his power strong enough to like take out stronger soups? Like I think that's one of the biggest parts of that. So, you know, what basically in what service does him having these powers, whatever they may be, like what services are they to him and to their overall cause, to get rid of soups in general, and then Homelander, of course, because that has to happen.
Yeah,
in the next season.
I mean, the powers. If we're gonna, I'm not entirely convinced he's soup. I'm very much convinced that he's got a parasite in him of some kind. Now, whether the parasite has soup-like qualities, and like what Tristan's saying, it's what's killing him and keeping him alive at the same time, which is very strange. I'm wondering if that thing is just growing inside of him, because, you know, before we've only seen it travel along his temple, but, you know, that's kind of a small area to get a glimpse of what lies underneath. But when we see that shot of the parasite, I call it a parasite, traveling along his back, and then he passes out, hits his head, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, how fast is this thing growing if it's growing? Right. And is it something that's kind of similar to that of Zoe, Victoria Newman's daughter? You know, she had the tentacle things come out of her mouth and kill everyone because of the fact that these powers, if you will, took out Ezekiel. Not saying Ezekiel's maybe the strongest type soup that one could encounter. He certainly has the leverage of being able to be like Mr. Fantastic and you know, extend his limbs and that kind of thing. But I mean, that was a brutal way to discover the remains of Ezekiel, which, by the way, I kind of thought that he was already dead before. I'm like, was he resurrected? Like, I know he was like a god, you know, Christian follower of sorts, but I was like, I could have sworn he died in like a previous season, and I'm like, oh my god, he resurrected. Like, he is the chosen one.
I thought the same thing too. I was like, I thought we already saw him die in a brutal way, but I guess not. I think your theory about maybe Butcher's powers being similar to Zoe's, that makes a lot of sense because, you know, you know, Ezekiel his blood was splattered everywhere. It was, you know, I can see where maybe some snake-like thing or tentacle thing came out of Butcher's mouth and ripped him apart or something. I could see that being, um, you know, that's not the greatest visual powers, but it's really interesting. You know, we talked about with Gen V about the powers that Marie Moreau has, and about how, you know, maybe she could be the one who could help Butcher with his issues, but now I'm not so sure. However, we did get a reference to the Gen V characters, which I do always appreciate the little Easter egg, quick, you know, nods to it. We get a Tech Knight commercial for his show where he talks about the Godolphin 4. I don't know. I like that stuff. I think we're going to see some of those characters in this season. I think we almost have to. But as far as Butcher, I don't know. Like, I talked about this last week. Like, obviously Butcher and Homelander, that's got to come to a head. That's obviously going to happen next season, you would think. I do like right now, though. I think the best episodes is when you keep them separated, keep them apart. And that's why this episode works so much better than the previous episodes for me, was because Homelander was on kind of like a side quest, and Butcher's kind of doing his Butcher thing. Which, by the way, how many times can Butcher get kicked out of the boys and then be brought back to the boys like in the same season? It's like 4 times this season. It's like I don't know what's going on. Like,
it's his group. It's
yeah,
his group. They're always going to accept him.
It's like MM's kicking him out, and the next thing's like, we got to have him back. Like, we're one asshole short, like he said. I just
the Sir Kristen Cole of the boys.
Do not compare any of these characters to Kristen Cole, sir. I will kick you out of this group.
He keeps failing up. Just no matter how much he fucks up.
God.
Yeah.
Kristen, I really want to be your friend, but you make it hard sometimes.
You're not the only one.
So Butcher obviously was impacted by Compound V. And so let's move on to another character who is hoping to use Compound V to help save another person. That's Huey. So let's talk about Huey's storyline in this episode. Huey goes to A-Train and, you know, gets A-Train to retrieve some Compound V for him so he can give to his dad, because as we learned in the beginning of the episode, the dad has been taken off life support. Huey's mom, who came back into his life in episode 1 or episode 2 of this season, has decided to take him off life support. The father's technically brain dead. And that's when Huey gets the idea that maybe I should give my dad Compound V. Fast forward to the end, Huey gets the Compound V, and we'll talk about how he gets that a little bit later. But he gets the Compound V. He goes to you know, administer it, give his dad some Compound V, but you know, the mom kind of stops him, or he basically decides not to do it because, like, he's told. I think Kamiko kind of says, you know, you should just let your dad die, as sad as that is, and Butcher gives him some advice. Don't do it. You know, like, it's the worst thing you can do.
He pockets the Compound V, but he takes off the jacket. He leaves it on the chair when the mom comes in. He walks away to go get a coffee or something. And she's got like this look, like she knows something. We've learned that the mother left for reasons possibly surrounding that of postpartum depression, but she works for Vought, and she is some sort of into essential oil, not essential oils, but like the oil, the
Kind
all
of a
this other.
sales lady, like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just it's interesting. So I feel like perhaps she has some involvement with developing or trying to maybe somehow use Compound V. Maybe all the things that she has in her little, traveling suitcase could have traces of Compound V. I don't know. I'm reaching, y'all. But she seemed to know something as soon as Huey walked out. And then the next thing you know, Compound V is hooked up to the IV, and it's going through the lines into Huey's dad. And he seems like he's about to go into cardiac arrest, right? And boom, he opens his eyes at the very end. I'm like, oh, she had something to do with it. Either she's a soup herself, or recognizes Compound V to some sort of degree. I don't know. I'm kind of weary about her because I don't know what her end game is. I don't know why she decided to, outside of her ex-husband dying, I don't know why she's back in their lives unless there's like a greater purpose than just serving as the power of attorney, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sus about her.
Yeah. Tristan, what's your kind of theory on the situation with the mom returning the Compound V? Was it her stash of Compound V? Did she use Huey's? What do you think the dad's going to be like on the Compound V?
So I've seen several theories. One was, what Brittany said, that, she snuck and put it in. She works for Vought, so maybe there's a connection there. I've seen a theory that the mom is actually like Huey's subconscious, and it's actually Huey who's doing it, but like it's through like his mother is a subconscious, because I don't know if do we ever see the nurse like actually talking?
Oh my god, I love this theory
looking?
because we said the same thing about Kessler to Butcher. Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Right.
It's like the same idea. Then Butcher's also seeing Becca. Oh my god, I love this theory. I love it. Go ahead.
Jeffrey Dean Morgan always have to be like a ghost. Like he was a ghost in Grey's Anatomy. Like
he was alive in Supernatural, and then they brought him back in different manners. Spoilers, y'all. Sorry.
So personally, I think the more likely is that she saw him put it in his jacket. And I think she absolutely knows what it is, and through some act of desperation decided, unilaterally, that she was going to inject him with it. It's just a horrible idea. Like she should know of all people. Huey should know of it as well. Like, you can't control the effects of that Compound V in the body system. Like it might, get some superpowers, but like those powers might also be like super destructive to your own body. Like, so he should know more than anybody like that. It's not the right way to go. So I don't understand that, but I'm assuming we'll find out next episode. Like what happened, what purpose, what's that in service of?
Yeah, I do like the theory that the mom could be like his subconscious, just like the theory that Kessler is the same thing for Butcher, and just how he's always talking to Becca, who he has her kind of in his head all the time. I think that would be interesting. And the one great thing about this show is they usually don't waste a lot of time. They don't string it along. Like usually the next episode or two, you kind of get an answer to your question. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. This show, for being a superhero show, it's also a very political show. I love that part of this show. But in this week's episode, they tackle abortion on The Boys, as you get abortion through the eyes of the female versus female kind of battle with Starlight and Firecracker. Their feud kind of explodes. Brittany, want to get your thoughts on the whole situation? Like it's just we learned last week why Firecracker has a grudge for Starlight, because whenever they were both on this like pageant circuit, Starlight spread a rumor about Firecracker, and then that cost her shot at being a little pageant queen or whatever. And so she's trying to get her revenge, but seems like she's going a little bit too far.
It's kind of funny that we just so happened to change our schedule around to talk about the boys today, and now on this subject about abortion being highlighted in the boys. Today actually is the anniversary 2 years ago when Roe versus Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court. And I had I still do. I have a lot of feelings about that. And I'm not going to go into it because that would be a whole other hour of just ranting. The idea still that people are more concerned about what a woman chooses to do with her body, in regards of wanting to have a child or not, is more offensive than a grown adult having relations with a minor. Firecracker, I'm looking at you. Like, yes, she pushed the button for that tweet to go out, right? That the dirt that Butcher and them had dug up was now live by her own decision making. And then she comes clean, to confess that, she fell in love with this 15-year-old and they had relations and what have you. It's like, okay, so that's virtually acceptable in this society. But if a woman decides she isn't ready for whatever reasons for not wanting a child, that's the hill that we're going to die on. Like, come on, people. Like, we're going to excuse.
Well, but Firecracker, she was forgiven instantly because she, she said, in that moment, that was she was, what was it? God.
Led her to God.
Yeah, basically led her to God, and immediately her sins were washed away. And this was the moment that changed her life forever. So she was able to spin it. Yeah.
It's kind of a double entendre of the larger political statement that they're making. Like everything Brittany said, like, yeah, abortion, super bad. Everything else we can forgive, but like the second part of that is like the religious aspect of it. Like as long as you can cosplay, faith and cosplay like this allegiance to, religion or Christianity to be specific, then all your sins will be forgiven. Like it's not even like the millionth time that a politician or somebody in the public eye did something super fucked up and said, well, I'm giving my life to God, or, I'm going to, like that's like the new rehab. What the show is kind of demonstrating is it's highlighting the cynicism that comes with like the religious right. Like the cynicism is how they feel about their own supporters. It's like, oh, as long as we throw out these buzzwords, as long as we say, hey, I'm going to rehab, or it's led me to God, or yada yada, like bad abortion, like you can spew whatever message you want because those are the buzzwords that people are looking for. What's really been funny about this season is that there's been a large segment of conservative people who just now have figured out that the show has been making fun of them, like since episode 1.
It's season 4 too. It's season 4. Like,
I don't.
Like since the pilot episode.
Thank you. I mean, from day one, they were not shy about what they were saying and who they were making fun of. That's the great thing about the show is that it's not just like poking fun at on one side; it's poking fun at both. Like they're equal opportunists in that right. But I find it hilarious that yes, a lot of right wing people are becoming like, oh, they're really, it's about us, bro. Yeah, it's always been.
It's less coded in this season. Yeah. Like you have Firecracker who, when Butcher or Frenchie goes into her trailer and, sees her real name, like the initials are MTG, like clear, Martin Taylor Green. Like it's a lot less coded, but it's been there literally since the first episode of season 1. It's been there, like they're just spinning it out. Like, so again, that goes into like the cynicism, like the religious right has this cynicism about their own supporters, and the boys are showing like, hey, it's not us that think that you're stupid. The people that you're supporting think you're stupid. Like there's a whole playbook that they can use to get you on their side no matter what they do. And you're going to fall for it because you're stupid. Like, and they're just telling you that. So yeah, like this is The Boys is political by nature, but like, yeah, they make fun of everyone. like
Mm-hmm.
us, in the middle, independent, centrist, leftist,
Yeah.
right, whatever. Like our
Yeah.
allegiance to celebrities, our need to be saved, and all these things, like just gender identity politics, like all these things are in this blender, and they're just mixing around and just laughing at everyone. And
I
I'm here
think
for it. As a fellow cynic, I'm here for it.
I think another great driving point to what Tristan just said is you think back to was it the second season where you have that one guy who's like watching all this content of propaganda, and he's just obsessing over it that
Yep.
Certain people are terrorists and certain people are bad, and every single day watching something, listening to something that's supporting what ultimately is his own beliefs, and then he goes and acts on those words and ideologies and propaganda movements. It's so real. It's so real to what's happening today. So the idea that people now are just like clicking to oh, Homelander sounds really Trump like. I'm like, where have you been? Where?
I mean, the rallies, the trial, like, I mean, all this stuff was like very like one for one, and people just weren't
A
putting it
miscarriage
together.
of justice. Like, please. Yeah,
I do
it's
find,
super funny.
yeah, I do think it's interesting in this battle between Starlight and Firecracker. Which, by the way, Firecracker, like, obviously you're not supposed to like her, but she's a funny character. Like whenever she says, Butcher's talking to her, she's like, "Talk American." I thought that was funny.
You know
And
what's
then
even go
go
ahead.
for it. No, go
No,
ahead.
go for it.
No, I,
All I was gonna say,
yeah,
her character became even more hilarious to me after I learned that the actress
yeah,
is a lesbian.
yeah.
And she's playing this role of someone who's the complete opposite of who
Right.
she identifies to be. And I love that for the performing aspect of it, because it brings on a challenge, right? I actually love the fact that this, and I say this actress because I can't remember her name off the top of my head. I apologize, but I love that. I absolutely love when people play a complete opposite of who they are in real life. I don't know. It warms my heart.
Yeah, and the actress's name is Valerie Curry, and
Thank you.
we mentioned this last week, but like with that character addition of her and Sage, who I was about to get to, like I love how they like add these actors who I'm not familiar with at all, add them to this world. They fit in perfectly. They're so like great from jump. It's like just
Yeah.
they just mesh so well with the cast. But I find it interesting that Sister Sage is the one who's like pulling the strings behind all this. I think she's the one who gave Firecracker the abortion information about Annie before they did the 6-hour show on VNN, which I mean that's insane. But like it's funny because the show is a parody of our world, but it's like not that far off from our world. So you could definitely see something like this happening. Yeah, just despite the superpowered stuff, but everything else is kind of there. I did like, the part where Sage is thanking or Firecracker's thanking Sage for helping her. She's like, "When I first met you, I thought you were kind of uppity, but you're one of the good ones." Like, I don't know.
If that wasn't a backhanded comment, I don't know what would be.
Well, and then whenever Starlight's beating her brains out, which, I thought we were gonna see the end of Firecracker in this episode. I did like how Sage is kind of watching, even though she's kind of the one who set this up. She kind of liked seeing Firecracker get her comeuppance in that fight. Um, where Tristan, where do you see this feud going from here? I mean, it feels like you can't get any bigger besides one of them killing the other one. But what do you think's next for Firecracker and Starlight?
Well, it's interesting because I don't think Starlight versus Firecracker is the actual battle. Like, what they should be focused on is Sister Sage.
Yeah,
Like, she's the one who's controlling the string. And side note, outside of Kamiko, she might be my favorite character this season. Like, you're not supposed to root for her, but again, as a fellow cynic, I appreciate that. Like, Sage is her whole objective is based on practicality.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think she like fully believes in what Homelander or Firecrackers is selling. I think she's just like, hey, people are stupid. You know, people can be manipulated, and I have the brain power to manipulate people. And that's just kind of what like how what her power leads her to in the moment. So that's the one that they should be focused on. Firecracker is literally a figurehead. Like, she's a this is the way we do. Yeah, this is the way our politicians now. Like, you have politicians who are out on front and they're broadcasting this message to everyone, but like, there's always like people behind them who are like filtering what that message should be, and that's Sage. And again, it's she's led by her cynicism. Like, cynicism and like extreme intelligence is a very dangerous combo. So, and they've been ahead of Mr. Sage and the Seven. They've been ahead of Butcher and the boys, like at every step. Like, the fact that Firecracker has no issue like putting her, you know, her dirt all the way in the street because she understands like there's a larger thing. Like, who so what? Like, you know, you were a pedophile or are a pedophile. Like, as long as you can continue executing that message, and everything is all good. So if they can, the first objective before you can stop Homelander, before you can like catch up to what that side is doing, you got to stop Sister Sage. So like, that's who they should be focused on.
Yeah, she's definitely like the Lex Luthor to Homelander Superman. Although usually Superman and Lex Luthor don't team up, but in this world they are a team, and at least for now they are.
I said it in our last pod, Tristan. I know you weren't here to hear it, but the reference that Homelander makes about being like Caesar or having a plan like Caesar, and Sage just kind of lit up on that. I was like, oh, she's his Brutus. I am wholeheartedly of the opinion that Et tu Brute is Sage. Wholeheartedly. I can't wait for that.
Well, in some ways, you know, we talk about, or, you know, we start thinking about AI and how, like, you know, eventually AI, it's going to be so smart that it's going to realize that they don't need us, right? The machines aren't going to need us. Sage is kind of like the human AI, and I feel like what you're saying, Brittany, is like, she knows that, like, she's, you know, she's getting the pebble rolling down the hill, or whatever she said, that the pebble down the mountain, like,
Pebble Falls.
yeah, she's trying to cause this chaos because that's going to benefit her. And I think in the end, you know, maybe she just wants to watch the world burn. And but I mean, she's going to be the one that's going to be, you know, watching it. Everyone else is going to be burning.
It's moves and counter moves that
Yeah.
much we've seen in so many different films and television. She has her plan. This is all her plan. Homelander is putty in her hand. Unless he is smart enough to figure it out ahead of time, I think she is going to have a hand in his downfall, if that's actually what's going to happen at all. And I want to reference the chat real quick. Shout out to King B. Johnson and Premium Network for being in the chat today. Yep. Premium Network had posed the question, couldn't Victoria kill Homelander? Why not side with her? And it kind of still makes me wonder with this question, like, could Sage somehow get close enough to Victoria Newman and then try to overthrow Homelander in that aspect? I don't know.
It's a good thought. I mean, it's still not really clear. Like, we saw, you know, the first couple episodes that Newman is invulnerable to, you know, you can't shoot her in the head with a gun. You can't throw acid on her.
Most of these soups have like bulletproof skin. Like, that much has kind of already been determined.
Right. But I don't think that Newman thinks that she can take out Homelander by herself. So
I think she's too afraid to try. I think that's the reason why she hasn't, because as quick as maybe she could pop someone's head, Homelander can easily laser her.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's whoever's quickest to the draw.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of her interest in Marie comes from as well, though.
Yeah.
Gen V.
That is fascinating. Yes.
Yeah. I think we're going to get those characters in this season probably pretty soon.
I'm going to predict it's going to be this next episode. That's just me. Okay. I'm going to say it's this next episode. I don't know at what capacity, but I feel it's gonna happen this next episode.
Yeah, I can see that because we're already like the mid-season point. It's only an 8-episode season, so I could see that kind of being like a big kind of mid-season deal to get us, headed toward the final stretch of the season. Um, Sticking with Sage, Brittany, you picked up on this last week. You noticed there was some kind of bloody instrument that was next to her when she was watching trash TV and enjoying her bloomin' onion from Outback and you know, getting down with the deep. Well, this week we find out way more about Sage and her thing with the deep. You want to talk about it?
I kind of wish I wasn't right, because seeing how graphic that turned to be was not something I hope to ever witness again. So therefore, this watch of episode 4 of The Boys for season 4 is the only watch I will be willing to partake in. The instrument that we saw at the end of episode 3 was indeed a frontal lobotomy instrument that apparently she needs to use in order to chill the fuck out, because she is the smartest person in the world and she can't be within her own brain at times. It apparently regenerates no matter how much she has scraped at it. But we got some important information. You stab her in the heart and she'll die. Okay, hope y'all picked up on that. But you stab her in the brain and it just regenerates. So take her out in the heart, y'all. Cut off the head. I don't care. But seeing Deep, like, he was squeamish about it. He's like, oh, like, I don't want to like help with the frontal lobotomy. And she makes him an offer that he can't refuse. And he says, oh, okay, so you want me to do it like this? Like, how fast? Listen, Chace Crawford.
Yeah.
Great comedic timing.
Yeah.
Period. I love him for that. But it's kind of sad. I kind of feel bad for Deep in this respect, because it's like she only wants to be with him when she's dumb. Like when she can't be her full true self. Like she doesn't want him or what have you. Like she only wants him when she's dumb. Like I guess maybe when she's on his level. And that's just kind of sad. And he hasn't quite picked up on that because he is who he is. Yeah, it was just a little.
Fuck the Deep forever.
I don't disagree, but my part of humanity just feels sad for him, and it's like, the only other love that he really truly has been given is from an octopus, and yeah, that's kind of fucked up. But anyway, that was a little too graphic to see.
Yeah.
The instrument go in the corner of her eye and all that, and it's just like, I'm good.
This was definitely the gross out moment. Yeah, definitely. You have to turn away.
Yeah, I had my hand over my eyes, like, okay, when is this going to be over? Like I'm looking through my fingers, like just too much.
It was tough to watch that. You're right. The corner of the eye, I mean, it's got to be tremendously painful. And I don't know if y'all check out the trivia for these episodes on Prime, but the trivia for this scene was lobotomies are still legal in Delaware and Colorado.
Well, like, I know where I'm not going to go vacation.
But like, I didn't look up anything about lobotomies because like Tristan, I didn't enjoy watching that part. But like,
you also don't want that in your Google search. Just saying.
No, you don't. But like, I mean, do they actually do frontal lobotomies like that? Like, is that like a real practice when it's not involved with superheroes? Like, I can't imagine you doing that and that working and not killing you or definitely injuring you. Like,
only lobotomies that I'm aware of would be just like along the temple, which is something that was, of course, practiced way back in the day. They, hammer that sucker into your head just far enough. And the only other, it's not quite the lobotomy, but when mummification was being performed in order to get the brains out of the corpse, was to shove an instrument up the nose and spin, and then yank it out of the nostrils. That's equally disgusting.
Very, very brutal. A character who might actually want another character who might actually want a lobotomy is Frenchie. Let's talk about Frenchie's storyline.
Hmm.
No surprise, he his the guy he's with, this Colin guy, who we find out in the previous episode that Frenchie murdered this guy's family. Uh, Now Frenchie confesses to killing Colin's family, and no surprise, Colin beats the hell out of him. Says that if he ever sees him again, he's going to kill him. Um, we learned that like Colin's mom was a federal judge. I thought his dad was when they explained it in the episode 3, but his mom was, and all that Colin remembers, he was a child when this happened. It was the scarred ankles that Frenchie has. Tristan, what do you think about this storyline with Frenchie and this new character who is a part of Starlight's team?
Um, I thought it's a little torturous on some fronts. Um, Frenchie does not have a lot of. He has these intimate relationships with. The only really other person that he has an intimate relationship with, like currently, can't speak.
Yeah.
So that's missing. So the irony that the other person that he finds is with is somebody that he can never ever be with. Um, it's heartbreaking in a lot of ways, and I'm sure it's what led him to like the rampant drug use that he's been doing. Um, but like it's so much of it is self destruction. Like continuing to go back to that relationship, knowing that that's just a hard secret to keep because it's like visual evidence. At some point, he's gonna see your ankles. You know what I mean? So. Um, I don't know how that pays off, in the overall story of the season. But for me, it does kind of showcase. It gives me more context on Frenchie and like why he is the way he is, because I don't think that may have been the last really really horrible thing that like fucked him up, long term. So he, in a way, he's punishing himself by trying to, continuing to engage with Colin, knowing that it's going to end horribly. And what's funny is that Colin being so nice to him is the part that is like the last straw that he has to confess now. It's like he can't take somebody being nice to him. Like I wonder how long he's going to continuously beat himself up about that. Like obviously the family dying is heartbreaking. But besides that, like how long you have to live with that. Especially when you really risk your life on a day-to-day basis trying to, like, in theory, make the world a better place, but like you've done so much to like destroy the world at the same time, and like dealing with both of those emotions at the same time. Like on one hand, I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to get rid of like these sociopathic superhuman beings that at any point could enslave all humans. On the other end, like I've done a lot of those psychopathic things myself, and like he, kind of how does he, work with those competing feelings? So I think it's an interesting storyline. Like I'm very interested to see what role Colin plays the rest of the season, the rest of the storyline. But for me, it's all about Frenchie and like the duality of like the emotions that he has to live with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at it as he's kind of going through, because they met in NA, right? Narcotics Anonymous. And I'd imagine there are steps that addicts need to work through. And perhaps whatever step Frenchie is on, it's having to deal with those horrible memories, as Tristan just said, and having to confront them and ask for forgiveness and that sort of thing. And that's hard. That's hard to do, addict or not. That's hard for anyone to face, especially when you've done so many, made so many poor choices and have committed crimes, and then you happen to have some kind of feelings towards a victim of the crimes that you've committed, right? And I feel for Frenchie. He's one of my favorite characters in The Boys. I love just how kind of like rough he seemed at the very beginning, but then you're starting to see that other side of him, how caring he truly could be, especially towards Kimiko and such. I'm just not entirely following what is the storyline going to serve outside of just seeing that duality of Frenchie. You know what I'm saying? Like, where do we go from here? Like, is this going to play a bigger role for Frenchie, or could it be the demise of Frenchie? You know, I'm kind of the opinion we're going to lose a member of the boys at some point. I just don't know when. If it's going to be perhaps this season or maybe in the final season. But yeah, I kind of fear for Frenchie, truly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like where he ends up. And obviously, I thought with Colin like last week before this week's episode, I thought, okay, he's a character that is probably not long for this world. But now with what happened in episode 4, I don't know. I could see him sticking around, and maybe he doesn't, suffer the same fate that his family suffered, or that, usually there's always like a love interest who is expendable and can be killed off. But maybe with what happened with him and Frenchie, maybe he'll make it through the season, or at least to the end of the season. So we'll find out about that later on. Now, Frenchie's usually teaming up with Kimiko, but in this episode, we got the first ever team up between Huey and Kimiko, which I thought was interesting because those are two characters that we'd never seen just them by themselves. They go on a mission. They meet up with A-Train to get the Compound V for Huey's dad, and then they're ambushed by the Shining Light, which is the terrorist group that took in Kimiko when she was younger. Tristan, what did you think about the team up? What did you think about Kimiko like teaching Huey how to fight, giving him like a makeshift shield? He messed up his ankle. She's like taping up rulers around his ankle so he can maneuver. What did you think about this pairing in this episode?
Kimiko and Huey would kill in Taboo. Like they would absolutely like cut like, and he caught that like that. So no, I thought that was, outside of like Homelander, like that was one of like the top moments in this episode. Man, fight or flight, it does something to you. And I think Huey is like finding with each passing season. Remember, Huey was the coward.
Yeah.
Huey never, nonviolent. He was afraid to like really, get his hands dirty. And circumstances have dictated that is a requirement of the job that he's trying to do. So like he's been more willing to get his hands dirty with each passing season. And he held his own. He absolutely held his own against, a better fighter than he was, let's just say. But for me, like I look at it like just who is Huey? What does it say about Huey and what he is? Like he's absolutely, I mean, even outside of just doing violent things, he's just more willing to make decisions. He's more willing to like go the extra mile. Now, I think this could absolutely hurt and has hurt him in the past. But he is growing up as a character and just identifying like the limits he's willing to go for the cause, whatever that cause may be. But he didn't back down. Normally if it was a season 1, he would just be content with hiding and letting Kimiko do all the work. And he stepped up. Shout out to Huey.
Yeah. He still ended up with blood all over him though. That trend continues, but at least it wasn't his own blood. Brittany, what are your thoughts on the pairing up of Kimiko and Huey?
I think Tristan will agree with me when I say this. Far better chemistry between Huey and Kimiko than Huey and Starlight. There. It's been said.
By far.
Yeah.
By far.
Good point. Yeah.
I mean, Kimiko does not speak, right? She has, I guess one could say, selected mutism based on the traumas that she's experienced. But she gets her message across, whether that's through text, whether that's through her sign language, or not simple, but big facial expressions, right? I think Karen Fukuhara is another one that deserves an Emmy because she doesn't say a goddamn word throughout this whole series, and she just keeps killing it, like figuratively. she absolutely performs every single time she's in front of that screen, and seeing her fight against one of her the Shining Light, the female who seems to know her, they get into it, and then you see Kimiko like just get blasted in half. And it's like, well, how is she going to be able to regenerate from this? Because she's now separate body parts. It's like, with Wolverine and his healing powers, he's still intact, but she was in 2 pieces or more. But here she is, standing about, to fight this girl once again. And she kind of has a very emotional moment too with the scene that unfolds.
I love her, just the way she's like when she's texting. Like that's such a great everyone texts all the time, but like it's just so like she plays that so well for laughs. And you're right, she's so expressive. And the show's just like chock full of great characters, and she's definitely one of them. Finishing up on Huey, let's talk about Huey forgiving A Train. You remember this show, the first episode, the first 3 minutes of the episode, the moment that I think everyone was like, "Whoa, this show is insane." A Train runs through uh, Huey's girlfriend at the time, and I can't remember her name. Do you remember it, Brittany?
Robin.
There we go. Robin. Yeah. And you're just
Don't
like,
you
"What?"
besmirch the name of Billy Joel.
There you go. You
Last
remember
words he said.
watching that episode, and you're just like, "Wow, this show is crazy." Like this is how they're starting out the series. But in this episode, A Train goes and gets the Compound V from Homelander's apartment, brings it to Huey. They actually shake hands, and they're good. It seems genuine. Tristan, what do you think about Huey forgiving A Train, and do you think A Train's finally going to make that face turn and join up to try to stop Homelander or Sage or whomever in the future?
I think it's inevitable. Like I've been predicting the next 1 to 2 episodes. Like A Train, he's been moving toward. He's no pun intended. He's been on that train to leaving out of the 7 and joining up with the boys for a couple seasons now. Like he's getting it from everywhere. Like emotionally, then family. Like everything's crumbling around him. Like he's known. I think he's known from the jump. Like this 7 shit just is not what is meant. It's cracked up to be. Like that's not a dream at all. Like it's actually a nightmare. So I think that's one thing that's been pushing them out the door or pushing them towards the other side. Like conscience. Like there's a lot of stuff to deal with. Like killing innocent people. At first, when he killed Robin on accident, I think he's still part of like that super hero type of cycle of, well, this isn't a big deal because I'm more important,
Right.
in these type of ways. And like once he's almost died, several times. Homelander's threatened to kill him several times. Like he knows that his life is always at the edge. So it's like, what is this shit really for? Like, is it worth it? Like, probably gonna die anyway.
Yeah.
From finally standing up to Homelander or on some mission or whatever. Like, so at some point, you have to do the right thing. You have to be who you are. And I don't think at its core, A Train is this psychotic, narcissistic. Like, there's some narcissism there, but like,
Yeah.
I don't think he's this uber narcissistic, character. Like, eventually he's got to come back to, because that's just where his soul is kind of taking him. So next couple of episodes, I think he's going to defect permanently, and we'll go from there.
I hope and pray that the showrunners and writers do not do to A Train what they did to Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones, because if that were to happen, I am done with this show forever. Okay? Y'all heard it here first, y'all. Like, do not tempt me with a good time. A Train, I think, like Tristan said, him coming over to the boys is probably inevitable at some point.
Mhm.
I'm kind of the opinion that we're going to probably get back Queen Maeve. She'll make her return at some point, join up with the boys. I think we're going to get some Soups to come over to help the cause of the boys, right? And then, we were kind of, in a way, leveling out the playing field, like Soup on Soup, but Soups who are against Homelander, right? With A Train, though, he's risking so much. I'm at this point where, especially when he's in Homelander's apartment. Does Homelander not believe in security of some kind? Because like people are just, and I say people, are walking in and out of his apartment. Looking at you, Ashley, girl boss, leaving a dump for Homelander in his toilet. Like, how are there no alarms and no systems, especially for Homelander? Like, my goodness, my
I
goodness.
guess when you're the most powerful person in the world, you can just do, you don't think you need that. I don't know. But you think with, he's living in
Yeah,
a Vought funded place that they've got all kinds of security and
yeah.
cameras and stuff.
But with also perhaps A Train coming over to the boys' side and for their cause. Ashley's also been rubbed out from that was a really poor choice. Words. Look at Justin, the effective
Wow.
what you started yesterday.
Wow. First it was hand job yesterday. Oh my God.
Join us here on the Watchers in the Basement. You
Whoa.
never know what kind of shit we'll say. God, I'm not kidding. Ashley has been given the boot as CEO of Vought, right? She's been replaced.
Not officially, though.
Not officially, but
yeah.
she is the mascot for all
Right.
intents and purposes.
Yes.
She and A Train have reached some sort of like impasse, right? Where she knows something about A Train and what he's doing, carrying the Compound V, taking it from Homelander, and A Train knows that Ashley is just in Homelander's space. So it's kind of like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your kind of situation. Maybe Ashley too will come over to the boys. Maybe not directly, but give information when it becomes available, right? If she is not at the forefront of Sage's mind, Ashley could probably do some things freely without really being looked at too closely. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it is like, it's fitting that Ashley and A Train kind of have this like pact or whatever, because they're kind of in similar situations where they kind of have nothing to lose, like, I mean, obviously they could die, but like they realize that that's probably going to happen anyway. If they stay with Vought, with the 7, they kind of have to, go down swinging. And, yeah, I could definitely see those two, flipping this season. Hopefully soon. That would be nice to see. Um, the final character I want to talk about is Mother's Milk. Now, he has not had he hasn't really had a big storyline unto himself, but he's the leader of the boys. And I wanted to mention, there's a part of this episode that I don't think, like, nothing in the show is like wasted, right? Everything that is said on screen has meaning. There's a part where Butcher, he asked to save Ryan and raise him. He's like, if I don't make it, if I don't get this done, you're the best dad I know. And then MM's like, that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. But like, what if Ryan doesn't want to go? And Butcher's like, you got to make it happen. So, Tristan, my question is, do you see this as what's going to happen, where maybe Butcher doesn't make it to season 5, or maybe he dies early, and we do see MM having to raise this kid?
I mean, if we do see it, I don't think it's just MM by himself.
Yeah.
I think that Ryan would be a group effort. From being very honest, I don't see Ryan making it through like the end of the series. In general, like it would just be a little bit too poetic. Like his mother died, something's gonna happen. I think Homelander. I don't want to speculate now, but I don't think he's gonna make it to the end of the series. But I do see there being like some type of concerted effort to like steer him in the right direction. For however long he's in the show, like using those powers for good. I don't know how sustainable that is, but yeah, man, like as much as they hate Soups, like those are a lot of the boys are good-hearted people. Like that's what's kind of driving their crusade against Soups, is like they're good-hearted people with like good intentions. Even Starlight, like she's good intentions.
Mhm.
How far that goes, I don't know. But whew, I don't see a scenario where it's just like Mother's Milk raising Ryan and like being the dad that stepped up. Like I don't see that happening. I just think that in this huge war that is really shaping up between the 7 and the boys, like there's going to be some unfortunate casualties And personally, I think Ryan's going to be one of them.
Solid prediction.
Unfortunately,
That is so sad.
Yeah.
It's so
I
sad.
mean, we just saw, Baby just got his head severed off.
I was just gonna say,
but also sewn back on though. Sewn back on.
Yeah.
Let's tell both sides of the story.
If y'all have no idea what we're talking about, go head over to our House of the Dragon season 2 reviews. There's only 2 episodes that are out, so y'all have plenty of time to catch up and understand what we're talking about.
Also, House of the Dragon, pretty popular show. Like, I think you should
just watch it anyway. Yeah,
just watch it.
Get some of that rock that you're living in, and turn to HBO on Sundays. Like, wow.
There you go. Catch up on all of that and come back and watch our reviews. I hadn't considered Ryan not making it to the very end of the series until Tristan just pointed that out. There's a lot of people I'm sure who are not going to make it to the end of this series, let alone this season, probably. So I'm not sure what Mother's Milk, Marvin, Monique's ex-husband, a lot of M's here. I don't know what may be in store for him. I'm hoping he's not going to be someone that they're going to write off. Just because he is now over the boys and because he is a caring individual, it seems that when you care too much, you have a lot more to lose. And Marvin is that guy. Like, he has a daughter. He has an ex-wife whom he still, I think, very much cares for, whether or not Todd was in the picture or not. He has a lot to lose. Whereas like Huey, now his dad is presumably souped up. His mom could be souped up. They might be okay to take care of themselves. But Starlight, she's not on speaking terms with her mom, given the news that just broke out about, her abortion. MM's got a lot to lose. So I don't think he would tack on having a child if it meant that he had to lose his own. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think he would willingly give up Ryan in order to save his own daughter.
No, definitely. I just think, like, with that kind of statement, it's probably more about like Butcher basically saying, like, I don't think I'm going to make it. And obviously we're kind of led to believe he's not going to make it, which, he's one of the main characters. So he'll probably make it to the season or to the final season. But to me, it just, the larger point is, I don't know how this show's going to end. I love this show, but I don't like, I could give you 50 scenarios of how it could end. I don't feel strong one way or the other. I really don't. Like, will Homelander just win and keeps going, or will they finally take him down? I mean, honestly, I don't know. And that's one of the fun things about the show is that, week to week, I'm kind of, they keep me guessing. And like obviously the episodes are very entertaining and it's fun to watch, but I have no clue how this story is going to end. So,
I mean,
I don't know, we'll see.
President-elect Robert Singer is distancing himself from Starlight after the events that occurred.
Yeah.
We know that he knows Victoria Newman is a soup. Is Homelander going to do whatever it takes to get Victoria to the presidency and then out her as a soup? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's like the end game for all of these characters? And yeah, it keeps you guessing. You think you might figure it out. Nope. You'll plot twist. So this show is just so good. So good.
Yes, it is. As we're kind of getting out of here, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to bring up, or do you have final thoughts? Tristan, I'll let you go first. Is there something you want to mention that I didn't touch on?
Not really. I mean, we brought up President Singer and Starlight. We could have talked a little bit more about that. Like, how really, like, Annie versus Starlight, because she was willing to like go back to Starlight for the larger cause of getting that bill passed. Like, what is her role with the administration? What is the administration's role? Like, obviously he was distancing himself from her. Victoria Newman, like, I know she kind of condemned her publicly, but like privately, is there still, does she have some type of connection with Annie there? But outside of that, not really.
Yeah. Brittany, what about you? Any final thoughts? Anything we didn't talk about you want to mention?
No, I think we did cover everything that needed to really cover, because what may carry on into the next episode. Of course, we have no idea what could happen in the next episode. I'm sure we'll see more and more of Homelander's insanity come through. I'm just here for a good time, right? And I love this show. I don't know what else truly can be said. Although I'm still kind of waiting for that big wow factor. Like we talked about this, Justin, in the other in the first 3 episodes. Like, yeah, there's some shocking moments.
Yeah.
However, I'm still waiting for that really big wow factor that we have had in the past seasons, and I don't know how that can be topped with the premiere of season 3, with your version of Ant-Man taking a stroll down someone's private parts. So and then having a good old sneeze. So yeah, I don't know how you top that. Honestly, I hope it can be topped. I'm still waiting for that wow factor.
Yeah, as we talked about, maybe season 3 is just the peak of the show. That's the midpoint of the show anyway, so it would make sense if that's just kind of the, because there's so many great moments in season 3 that maybe season 4 isn't quite as good. Still, this show is very, very good, and we are definitely going to continue to watch it, continue to review it. So please keep watching us here on YouTube, and give us a like, subscribe to the channel. We always appreciate that. But now that you know what we think about episode 4 of season 4 of The Boys, we want to know what you think about it. Brittany, how can people let us know?
As always, we invite everyone to join us here on the live chat when we are reviewing our favorite TV shows and movies, just like King B. Johnson has done so already, giving us all these comments here in the chat. We appreciate you being here, as well as Premiere Network. Thank you for your question. We hope you enjoyed this pod. If y'all haven't done so already, give us a subscribe, give us a like, hit that notification bell. That way you know the next time we will go live, which at time of recording will be tomorrow. Frank and I will be back to talk about the latest episode from Interview with the Vampire. That is a huge show for us here on our channel. We would love for you to take part in that as well. And also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, all at Watchers Basement. Use that same hashtag to help grow our audience. That's hashtag Watchers Basement. And lastly, check us out on our audio podcast platforms. That's Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Give us a follow, and don't forget to give us a 5-star rating.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate it. So for Brittany and for Tristan, I'm Justin saying thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.